Did you know that there's only around 79% of adults in the United States that are literate? So, I want to talk a little bit about this topic because it can be a hot button topic for parents and students alike. Currently, there are only about 4 out of 10 fourth graders, as recently as NAEP data from 2024, that are reading at or above grade level. What that means is around 60% of our country's fourth graders currently cannot read at their grade level. So when we look at then the statistics of current adults who on average, if we're picking up a book, we're reading at about a seventh or eighth grade level. I also am in some different self-publishing circles and publishing house circles to know that many authors, they are told to write their book at a fifth or sixth grade reading level, even if it's a business book, a finance book, no matter what it is. So as a former literacy teacher and literacy coach, think of me as your kind of friend in your back pocket if you're a parent who has kids who are struggling to learn reading or you struggle to get into it. So I want to give you a couple strategies today. It's actually 3 different questions you can ask. I'm going to be looking down at some of my notes here, but these questions have to do with actually looking at different points of view. And this can be applied. These are actually from a kindergarten resource I'm reading. So I'm going to read you the kindergarten questions, but there's no reason that as an adult, you cannot apply these same strategies when you're reading something and you're challenging yourself to create some new neural pathways, get out of your comfort zone and understand a different mindset or point of view, a different way of living life or being on this planet. That's what ignites great conversation. So I love this t-shirt by LeVar Burton. Read the books they don't want you to read. That's where all the good stuff is. He has a couple different shirts, but I grew up on reading Rainbow. I grew up with that being the main thing that we could afford to do was to go to the different library branches all in our area where I grew up. And I didn't grow up in a super big city or anything, but there were at least multiple branches that we would go to in the summers. And that always felt like these field trips. But then when I would get my hand onto to a book, it was my saving grace because I always thought big. I wanted to travel. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to be like the characters in books. And I read and read and read because I couldn't always find that, but there were elements. So I would consume books so fast because I'm looking for myself in those books. When I look back on it, that's why students making a connection to text through the pictures, through the characters, through the different events, if it's nonfiction or the historical figures, that's why it's so important that we have conversation about it. And reading is not taught as solely a science. Let's be very clear. I'll maybe do another video on that. If anybody has questions about science of reading, I've got a heck of a lot to say about it. Not a fan of the system. I think it pulls us away from the very essence of what reading is supposed to do, which is help us ignite critical thinking and expand our perspectives and perceptions. Okay, so I'm saying this because we often look at reading as a rote thing that we need to learn how to do, just like how we look at mathematics. And it is not that. For the architects and engineers of the world, for those of us in tech, that is not what it is. It's a whole new world. And that's how I've always felt about literacy. So the art of reading and writing, not just the science of it. So again, put any questions you have, especially if you're a parent who you're like, my kid isn't learning how to read with this system. There's a reason why. And I believe it's intentional. There's my 2 cents. So here, I'm going to give you the 3 questions though. And they're questions that no matter the age of your student, your little learner, or if you're an adult watching this, you don't have kids, you can ask yourself these questions. They're literally from a kindergarten manual that I'm looking at. You see, I have a bunch of resources still. So, what is one characteristic that's shared by characters blank and blank? So you're comparing what's a characteristic, a commonality between 2 main characters. Now, this would be for a fiction text. Okay. Now, if you're looking at historical figures, this can also apply. So what's the main difference between maybe you're reading a book that it's a thought leader that you don't usually agree with? So think of one you agree with. What's the main difference between this person and this person? It might not have to be everything that you think or believe. Quit only reading books that validate what you think or believe in that current moment. That's fine sometimes, but like, don't go for a book just because it validates what you already believe. That's what I'm encouraging you to do. And then the second question, what adventures or experiences did both characters have? So again, you're not only teaching your child or your little reader how to be aware of the different characters, their dialogues, the plot lines that are happening, the development of the story, you're asking them to think more critically underneath that text of what those characters have in common and what's different. I encourage you to do the same when you're reading something and you get that feeling. We all get it and we go, how could they write that? How could they think that? Okay, pause, bring it back. What are the adventures or experiences that I've had the same as this person? And then third, the final question I would say is, how is the experience shared by character one and character two similar and different? So if you're doing this, a classic story that so many people know and it's so prevalent in many cultures told different varieties around the world is Cinderella. And so Cinderella, a good example might be what's different, what are the similarities and differences between the stepsisters and Cinderella. That's a very basic level one, but then I would encourage you to do the same. Do it even with podcasts or TV show hosts that you watch. What's the same? What's the different? Why am I always watching hosts like this? What's that telling me about where I'm at and where my mindset is at? So I gave you 3 questions that will actually ignite you to go a little deeper when you're reading. And they can also help your student if you're a parent. But I wanted to put that out there because reading is such a passion area of mine. And I wanted to encourage you all to dig into those toolboxes this summer. So when you're taking that road trip or you have the kids at home for the day and it gets long, have these questions that will ignite and have your little learner demonstrate it in different ways. Maybe they make a collage about what they read. Maybe they're going to write you a journal and you're going to write back and forth about the book you're reading. You don't need to tell all the details if it's more adult themes and stuff and you're reading a romance novel or something. So what? Your kid doesn't need to know all the details. You're still just going through that exercise of the asking the questions. And in turn, it makes us as adults more adept at our critical thinking and asking questions and examining how we really look at the world around us. So I wanted to put those strategies out there. And no matter what age you are, see if you can pick up a book today and ask yourself, why am I picking up this book? And how will this book expand my thinking? And maybe some days it's just, I'm going to pick up this book because it's fluff, meaning for me, it's an escape and it's about a woman who goes on vacation. Maybe there's no deeper reason than I just want to think about going on vacation someplace warm. That's it. All right, let's continue to get compassionately curious together. See you all soon.